Wonder Woman issue 5, legacy number 805. This is Tom King with Daniel St. Pierre on the art, and this is one of the best books going these past few months, and I don't think this issue was any exception to that. It has a very simple structure, which is a very neat dichotomy between the two plots that are going. So in one plot, you've got the villains and you've got the Sovereign narrating this stuff, talking about how Sergeant Steele was assembling the anti-Wonder Woman squad, right? Building an army of all of Wonder Woman's villains, and we'll go through all those pages in a bit. But at the same time, you've got Wonder Woman trying to convince all of the Wonder Girls that she doesn't want their help, that she doesn't want them to get involved. So what's so good about this is that you've got the villains building up a team as Wonder Woman, in theory, is shedding her team because she wants to make this a solo fight. And that just makes the stakes go higher as the issue is going on. Because Diana, they're forming a team. You need them. You need the others.
Every time, and she goes out of her way to be an anti-recruiter. You know, each time she tries to tell them, no, this is my fight. You guys don't need to be involved. You know, this is all on me. Thank you, though. And she really goes out of her way to essentially defeat their trials. Because that's what Wonder Woman does, right? Like, she passes all the trials of the Amazons, and here's, each of the Wonder Girls gives her a different challenge to do.
They're given these trials, and the first page it establishes that they each want something different. Also, what a structural thing here that I really liked is they go in reverse order of appearance. So you start with Yara, then Cassie, and then you end with Donna. So you're going back down the line from the newest one to the oldest.
Yep. And each of their challenges, kind of shows how well they know Diana, right, too. So it does ramp up, right? With Yara, it's something much more physical. With Cassie, it's something that's almost mental. And for Donna, it's definitely an emotional challenge.
I don't know. Arm wrestling's still pretty physical.
It wasn't the arm wrestling as much. It was the fact that the Cassie was talking to her as they were going, right? And telling me, like, you wouldn't, like, yes, you want me to sit out, but you taught me not to sit out. So she was kind of trying to appeal to Diana's, like, I know what you're doing, but it's not going to work, and then, Diana ends up, doing what she needs to do. But just the voices for all of these characters, I feel he just nails. And it's out of all of three of the Wonder Girls, the one I'm the most familiar with is Cassie, because I read, more of her than anybody else through Johns' Teen Titans and everything else. But, his voice for Yara is pretty spot on from what we've read before.
It sounds like Yara. And I think it's nice as well to read this issue from the perspective as the one kind of skeptical idea, the one worry going into this book when all this stuff was announced of what he was doing with Trinity, the daughter, was that sometimes when they introduce a new Wonder Girl, the rest of them kind of get shoved to the side and forgotten. So it was very nice in this issue to sort of treat them as the three pillars of, like, her support group. Because it made them feel like a big deal. It makes them feel like, they're not just going to be forgotten because Trinity exists, kind of thing. I thought that was very nice. So the way the issue basically works from this point on, after the first page setting it up, is that you get 2 pages of 2 different villains being recruited for the villain team, and then you'll get a few pages of one of the Wonder Girls' trials. So just to we'll just go through it in order, because honestly, I don't see what other way to do it.
Well, do you want to break it down into the villains and the recruitment and then the trials, or do you want to go one by one?
I will just go in order because I don't want to have to bounce back and forth. So, Sergeant Steele, first of all, recruits Giganta. There's a lot of stuff in the narration here about, like, what Giganta is and all the theories and rumors that she is a bear who became a woman, or a woman who became a bear, then a woman again.
Coming out of Beast World and her becoming a bear, very funny. Like, that was very well timed on DC's part. So, but just the idea that, at the end of the day, she's Giganta and she's bigger than you. It was just the art here, her standing in her, where you think it's just like a regular cell. And then when it's revealed that Sarge, she's in her giant form looking down at Sarge Steele, like, very, very fun art.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I was thinking about as they were creating some of these villains, because a lot of them are women, and how like sexist, particularly the Sovereign is.
Yeah.
It was obviously
narration.
The pitch to them all, of course, is that hey, you're going to get to kill Wonder Woman, and that's something you want, right? That in various forms is kind of the pitch to a lot of them. But it is interesting that we know he has no interest in giving any of these characters power. He doesn't want that. He's just selling them on a simple premise, and I think that's kind of interesting. And shows again the not that he's hypocritical per se, although he certainly probably is hypocritical, but more just the idea that he's willing to use other women to get what he wants, kind of
like
thing.
If he is the patriarchy given face, then this is him being able to turn women against each other for his own cause, right?
Yeah, and then we have Cersei is next.
Such a great reveal at the end here. You know, they're talking about Cersei and how, you know, with her history, they had to be really careful at sending men to talk to her, you know, but ultimately is she's a god that wants to be a bigger god. And how do they appeal to her, you know? And she's with these pigs and she's feeding them. And, you know, the thing you know about Cersei is that she turned Odysseus' men into pigs in the Odyssey. And then so when she goes to make the deal, she looks at this pig and shakes his hoof and it's metal. And it's Sarge Steel has been turned into a pig.
My favorite part of that is the narration. The Sovereign says, we don't know exactly what went on at the meeting, but we understand it didn't go too well. So that serves as kind of the punchline with that image of like, Steel got turned into a pig, but ultimately, of course, as we find out at the end, still seemed to work as far as recruiting her goes anyway.
Though she eventually accepted, we cannot claim the meeting went entirely as well as hoped. Just very, very funny stuff.
Yeah, and then we get to Yara's trial, and this is the arrows, and it's basically just, you know, these matching panels going down the side of each page with Diana and Yara pointing arrows at each other. And
we're just going to shoot arrows at each other and have them hit, you know, so they'll start at 1, and then they'll fire 2 at the same time, and then 3. Very, very ballsy of Yara's part.
Yeah.
To choose this as her trial.
And of course there's dialogue throughout all this as well. About how she's got the advantage because she's young and she's faster and all these things. So yeah, it's all very good. The art here is exceptional because it's all about pacing. It's all about the 1 arrow and the 2 arrows and the enlarged sort of contact when they hit each other in the middle of the battlefield. Until eventually, of course, you get that one where they fire 4 arrows and one of each makes it through, and you're like, shit, are they both going to get hit? And then the next page, you see Yara gets hit, and the one goes right past Diana's shoulder. So Diana's not even been hit. So it's funny, but it kind of feels like it's perfect characterization of Yara, in that she's a bit over her head, she's a bit cocky, and that fits with her character. Like, whenever we've seen Yara before, she's felt a bit cocky, and it's always been entertaining. But it works here that Wonder Woman kind of bests her because she is young.
She lured her in because there's no motion lines or anything. But I like to think that Diana just kind of sideswiped the arrow, right? Like, she moved because she knew Yara was never going to get her. You know, so like she goaded her into it, you know. And it's a attitude type thing. Yeah. She just, but yeah.
And the important thing at the end here is that once she's won, she's like, Yara, okay, you have to swear that you won't interfere in this fight. You stay away from this war. Swear it. And then we go to our next villain recruitment. And I actually really like this one, because this one had a little twist to it, which is basically, it's Dr. Psycho. But the narration explains that Dr. Psycho is very kind of unpredictable, and he's got a lot of negatives because he's all about, he was dumped by a woman, so he swore revenge on all of womankind and all the rest of it. But he's so off his rocker that we actually decided not to use him. However, he actually tracked us down. Sergeant Steele went to his office one day, and Dr. Psycho was sitting there volunteering to be a part of the team that takes down Wonder Woman. I thought that was perfect for Dr. Psycho.
It's Dr. Psycho to a T.
Yeah, it's so good. And then we have Grail is up next. Interesting detail here is that Sergeant Steele doesn't recruit her. It's the Sovereign who goes personally to get her because she's a god and he thinks she deserves a bit more respect. And, you know, the usual promise of fortune and fame and all that sort of stuff doesn't work on a god. That works on an immortal.
Yep. So. I do like that they're keeping Grail around, because Grail was a character they could have just tossed to the side, right? But the fact that they're recruiting her as part of this, it makes a lot of sense considering she's Darkseid's daughter, too. So, and then just the Sovereign's final line about who better to pay tribute to the daughter of Darkseid than we, the son of a dozen kings of the United States of America. And it's very anti-life, right? That sentence is just tripping with it, you know? So, yeah, very good stuff.
Yeah, because the Sovereign's entire thing's been manipulating, you know, the propaganda and, like, what the public thinks. So that's very anti-life. Then we go to Cassie's trial, which is an arm wrestling competition. But what really sticks out about this is the dialogue. Because Cassie knows Diana better than Yara does, it gets a bit more personal, and she talks about how she was never the princess type of girl. She was never into wearing those types of dresses or had the pomp and circumstance of it all. But it talks about how when she saw Diana appear as Wonder Woman, she became a princess girl, meaning Diana as a princess. Now she had a princess she wanted to emulate, that she wanted to be herself. And that's why she wants to help Diana here. She won't let her fight this fight on her own. But of course, Diana eventually wins the arm wrestling competition and makes Cassie swear to not get involved. And she does. So, really good stuff. And, you know, and the art here, of course, is great. Like, all these trials have a lot of great sequential art where it's, you know, this back and forth. In this case, it's arm wrestling. Before it was the arrows. Very different coloring schemes. This one's in like a bar, so there's a lot of oranges and like sort of wooden colors in the background.
Yeah, a lot of those natural. It's like green and orange and, you know, like earth tones.
Yeah. Every time we go to a new scene in this issue, there's a sudden drastic change in color palette. Like, as we go to the next scene, which is Silver Swan's recruitment, like, we're in the sky. It's bright, you know, this bright blue, pale sky, and even Silver Swan's all these like steel and blue colors, barring the red hair, obviously, which is very sticks out. I should say. But yeah, this just talks about how Steel had to be dropped in the sky for a while, but again seemed to ultimately recruit his target. And then we get Angleman, who I'm not as familiar with as a lot of these other characters.
Me neither. So that's where I'm looking him up now. But he seems like a wild card, right?
Yeah.
Like the way that King uses the narration to describe him.
Yeah. So basically, it talks about this guy who, without knowing what he'd done, discovered the final piece of the anti-life equation. Right? He found the final angle, if you will. And this made him very important. But he's in a mental hospital. He's in a padded cell, just drawing triangles everywhere, all over everything. So, yeah. And it basically talks about how people fear what he knows because of the information, because of the knowledge that he has. Very interesting to throw this character in. So whenever they do something like this where they assemble a team of villains and there's like one that I don't know, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. You're kind of elevating this, or at the very least you're making me aware of a villain that I didn't know very well before. So that's cool. Have you found any juicy information on Angleman?
So far, no. Just the idea that he has a living embodiment of a piece of the anti-life. That seems to be new. So that seems to be something that King has introduced here, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
But yeah, he's Phil Jimenez, kind of, you know, like he's been around for a while, but it really came to prominence in the Phil Jimenez Wonder Woman run. So, but yeah.
All right. Donna's trial's up next, and Donna has a blinder of an idea here to win, because she's like, what could I beat Diana easily? And her idea is a video game, So the final trial of the issue is them playing a fighting game, which is effectively Injustice. It's a bunch of DC characters, which I'm not against them having a fighting game based with all the heroes and villains in it. It makes, like, I totally believe this would exist if superheroes were real.
But
the question I have, though, is that the stage they fight in is the Batcave, and it's got the dinosaur and like all the other details you'd expect. And I'm like, how did the video game developers in the DC universe know about all this shit?
I'm so glad, because I got hung up on that too. Then I started thinking about it. I had to put the comic down and be like, wait, is this just for Nightwing and the Titans, right? Did Cyborg help create this? So that's why.
Okay, Cyborg, because he's a human machine robot man. He just whipped this up. Okay,
is this game only at Titan's Tower? Which, if that's the case, that's even more devious of Donna, right? 'Cause it's not a game that Diana could actually play. But once you get over that, it's the Donna's reason for doing this.
It's the minorest of quibbles. Like it's not a huge deal.
No.
It's interesting though, is that obviously they're playing the game and they're talking about being sisters, and again, it's Donna basically saying, like, there's no way I'm not getting involved. It's not happening, and they're playing the game, and obviously Donna's winning, and there's a lot of funny dialogue here from Diana where she's like, I think my buttons aren't working, and she keeps saying things like that, and it was really cracking me up. And ultimately, though, she ends up fighting back and kicks the shit out of Donna's character, which, by the way, I love that Donna was playing as Batman and Diana was playing as Superman. It felt right to me based on their personalities. But what I liked about it in the end was, because I was going to critique it a little bit and say, what, you're secretly revealing that Diana's great at video games? That feels a little bit weird to me. I don't really see how she would be. But then she explains how, and she says, hey, I've been working for Batman for years. Whenever he's in a fight with someone like Superman, he usually has a chance because he's had time to prepare. And that's what I did. I know who you're roommates with. I know that you guys play video games. I prepared. And I'm like, oh, okay, you spent a few days training. All right, I'll accept that. I'll accept that as an explanation.
Well, and then she also says, and when they do fight, Superman and Batman do fight, Superman always holds back, right? And so this is Diana going, like, I was rope-a-doping you. I let you think that you had the edge, and then I just came and used all of Superman's full power to defeat your character. And the idea that at the beginning, Donna told Diana, when you get mad and lose, don't throw the controller at the TV. And that's exactly what Donna does.
Yeah, it's very funny. It's a punchline because she set that up earlier by saying don't do it, and then she got so mad that she lost that she did it anyway. But what makes that good, though, is apart from just being funny, is that it's showing her frustration because she wants to help Diana, and she's mad that Diana's tricked her, and that she isn't going to get to help. And I think that's what gives it this weight. So it's not just a joke; it's a joke with actual meaning behind it, and that's actually very, very good writing. So that's great stuff. And she makes Donna swear not to get involved because she lost, and she's like, "I swear." All right, and then you get the full page. So all of the Wonder Girls have been taken off the board, seemingly, and then you get a full page spread of all of the villains that have now been assembled in this Kill Wonder Woman squad, which is Silver Swan, Gigantic, Grail, Cersei, Angleman, and Dr. Psycho. Hell of a lineup, right? And we go to Wonder Woman going home at the end of the day in her civvies, and the narration is talking about, oh yeah, we actually predicted and counted on that she would want to do this alone, and that she would drive her allies away, and that would help. So honestly, this has one of the best final page reveals and endings to a story that I've read in a single issue in some time, which is that Wonder Woman gets home to her place, she opens the door, and all three Wonder Girls are in costume, and the best one to quote here is basically Yara, who says, F your stupid trials, we're not letting you do this alone. It's like a total fist pump moment, and the Sovereign's narration at the end says, yeah, apparently we overestimated Wonder Woman's abilities to control her allies or whatever. So she wasn't alone. She had her Wonder Girls with her. It's such a good fist pump moment because the entire issue, like I said, you're doing this sort of counting up and counting down at the same time, where the villains are getting stronger and stronger, and Wonder Woman's like intentionally turning her allies away, and you think all hope is lost and that she's completely on her own before the end, and then only for the three characters to turn around and say, no, we're going to ignore your stupid request and your stupid rules. We're doing this anyway.
Because we care about you. We're not going to let you do this on your own. And that's something that the Sovereign says about the team that they've assembled, right? That it's an army of madness, power, obsession, magic, savagery, divinity, and hate. And then at the on the last page, his narration to counter that is, and so she acquired her own army, an army of skill, strength, cunning, and love. So right there, the balances just keep going. That they assembled a team of, of hate-driven characters that want to get revenge on Diana. As she tried to drive these ones away, their love for her brought them back.
And I don't know if you noticed the detail on this last page. There's a photo of that kid who had cancer on on Diana's wall. Very nice touch.
Very nice touch.
Yeah.
So,
I thought this was a very fantastically orchestrated issue because it had a very simple goal, right? It's showing you that Wonder Woman is trying to say this is her fight and not to get the people she cares about involved, only for them to turn around and say, what the hell are you talking about? There's no way we're not helping you with this. Regardless of all your trials and rules, screw the Amazon rules. We don't care. That's, it's... I think it's just really uplifting at the end in a way that, this book's been very good at sort of like balancing the rooting for Wonder Woman against the impending doom that the narration from the Sovereign kind of implies all the time. Like, he's always doing these really dark things and like talking about how they're manipulating everyone and turning the opinion against Wonder Woman and all that stuff. So it makes it doubly like rewarding when you get to the characters who are standing by her no matter what, even when she herself is saying, don't stick up for me, and they're saying, you don't get a choice, right, we care about you too much, you don't get a choice. And that's actually very uplifting, I think.
It's like, respectfully, we disagree.
Yeah, so fantastic. And obviously the art from Sempier is just, it's next level stuff like that. The full page spreads towards the end of both the hero and villains teams are both wonderful. Yeah. No pun intended.
You brought up the arrows, and where the arrows with her and Yara, when they connect, it makes these stars. Yeah. Which, stars are a thing we associate with Diana, right? But then when it gets to the Cassie stuff, it's so much more subdued, and it's just them doing the arm wrestling, right? And it's this 9-panel progression of them going back and forth,
Not only do we go further back to like the people who she's known the longest each time, we also get more personal in setting. When it's Yara, it's out in a field somewhere, it's just outside. Right. And then with Cassie, it's a sort of a more intimate setting, but in a bar, in a public place. And then when you get to Donna, it's on the couch in Donna's home. It's
outside,
it's the most intimate it could be.
Yeah, they're her and Yara are paces from each other, and then Cassie's, they're across the table, but then Donna and her are sitting next to each other. It's all, again, I always, when I read a Tom King book, I have Connor in my head trying to tell me that it's not good, right? But then I'm reading, I'm like, no, man, I don't know what he's missing. I don't know what screws loose, but like, this is just storytelling across the board. Him and his artist have such a connection. They make all of this stuff work so well on so many different levels. Yeah, it's really astounding.
I think as well, like, you can get a clear sense of the 3 different voices for the Wonder Girls, especially on that final page where it basically just runs on from one of them to the next one through like 3 sets of bubbles. And Yara's very funny because she's the young angry one who's swearing a lot. Like, just like, F that, F this.
My kind of lady.
Yeah, so... Whereas Donna's like more respectful, I guess, and more kind of...
And just like demure, because her dialogue or her word bubbles kind of just blend into the back, right? Kind of like how she is, up against the window. But they're all basically saying the same thing, is that we're here for you, just in their own ways.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, there's so much thought put into, like, how each of those trials and conversations are written, where the setting of each of them is, the order of them. It's all designed to orchestrate kind of a crescendo that you think is over by the time you get to the end, and then the last page, no, it's not over. They're all here anyway.
Yeah.
And that's a, it's a, like I say, it's a fist pump. It's the opposite of a gut punch, but with the same amount of impact, if that makes sense. But it's also exciting to see all these villains assemble, because, okay, shit, we've got now this villain team working for Sergeant Steele. Like, yeah,
like, because usually in the last couple of years, we'd have had Veronica Cale popping in there too. And, so the fact that not that he necessarily dug deep, like Engelman's pretty deep, but bringing Grail in, bringing back in Silver Swan and Giganta, Cheetah's not here. So I'm wondering if knowing who Cheetah is, I feel like her not being down with the Sovereign, I feel if we see her, she's going to maybe align more with Diana, but it's not the usual suspects. I think there's a very pointed reason for that. These are all people that the Sovereign are basically exploiting, their own reasons for not liking Wonder Woman.
Yeah, well, I mean, on Veronica Cale, I mean, you could read that as one Cale, because the last time she had a big story with Wonder Woman, at least from what I've read, maybe some of the stuff I didn't read she was in, I don't know. But, last I remember, Diana got her daughter back, so maybe...
Right, well, she showed up in this, remember? She was on one of the roundtables talking about the Amazoni.
That's true, you're right.
Right.
But alternatively, you could also argue that Cale is this powerful woman, and probably wouldn't be...
She's not listening to the Sovereign, right?
Yeah, she wouldn't be tempted, like... or maybe even less to do with her and more to do with the Sovereign's view of Veronica. The idea that he wouldn't like including this woman who's a rich, successful businesswoman because she represents everything he doesn't want to succeed.
Right.
Maybe that's the way to look at it. Either way, you can kind of explain to an extent why he wouldn't want Veronica Cale as part of the team.
And that's what I'm saying. Same about Cheetah, right? There's numerous other Wonder Woman villains that we've known over the years. Yeah. And just the fact that these ones are chosen for a very specific reason, and for what each they represent by Tom King. Also, thematically in the story, they all have, like you're saying, like he would go after Cale for storyline reasons. He would go for, let Dr. Psycho in, even though he's the biggest wild card, right? Because
they almost don't want him, as they mentioned, but he showed up and he's like, well, he does hate her, so...
Yeah, and that could, be the undoing of the Sovereign, right? Because he's such a wild card that, and they got so blinded by bringing down Wonder Woman, they didn't realize, bringing someone like Psycho in. But this was just a masterclass in storytelling from both the artist and the writer. So just when I realized what they were doing by showing us the recruitment and then showing us Diana not recruiting and each of the trials, it just, man, once that clicked, I was like, man, this book's cooking.
Yeah, and even if you want to boil it down to its simplest possible terms, Diana's trying to get less people involved and therefore hurt, whereas the villains want to get as many people in because they don't care if they get hurt.
Right.
Not that I would expect the Sovereign to care about these specific characters anyway, but the broad idea remains. So I think it's smart on that level. I think this is... I think this book, almost every single... There are 5 issues in, and I think at least 4 out of the 5 issues, including this one, have all felt like such full, meaty chapters where I feel like I've gotten a big, section of the story. It feels like it's made a great point by the end of the issue, and it's done a great job of building up to make me excited for where the story goes next. I think every issue's done that, and I think that's very impressive, and it does make some other comic books feel a little, light in comparison, everything in here feels so important. Not a single page or panel feels wasted. It feels like it's constantly building the overall like saga that it's telling. So I don't know. I feel like if we're getting into kind of an off period for Superman right now, because actions shifted to this new format and Superman's still whatever. Obviously, the main Batman book's not doing that great.
Yep.
I love that Wonder Woman seems to have come in to kind of be like, no, this character gets to have an all-time run now. But with the others not doing as hot. Obviously, Detective's still great and whatnot, but so really happy about that. Fantastic issue. I almost don't even know how much more I could say, or maybe I could speak for another hour about it. I don't know. But Matt, what are you rating Wonder Woman?
So I'm gonna give this a 9.5.
Yeah, I think a 9.5 is right where I am as well.
Did you read the backup? Or are you done with the backup?
I did read the backup, actually.
Okay. Gotcha.
So it's Tom King writing still, with I think the credits at the end, so I'll tell you at the end.
It's still Belen Ortega.
Thank you. That's the one.
Artist. Yep.
So basically, John, Cassie, and Damien, and despite the fact that John and Cassie feel like they're still, well, maybe Cassie's a bit older. Not Cassie. I keep saying Cassie.
It's Trinity.
Yeah, but what's Lizzie is her
Lizzie
name. Yep. Sorry, the Freudian slip. So she seems to be a bit older, and Damien is shot from being 14 to being adult Damien in the Batman outfit with the big collar,
the bat trench coat.
Yeah. So I'm still kind of wonky on like the ages Damien's supposed to be in relation to her. Because John looks the exact same age here, of course, as he usually does.
Is that Kryptonian? Kryptonian don't crack, right?
Sure. But they're having a kangaroo race, which of course was Trinity's idea, and the winner gets to name their Trinity, their trio, right? So their team, and she wants Trinity's Trinity.
It's not bad though, like, it's not good, but it's not bad.
Yeah. And then what was Damien's? Delta Force. That's what it was.
Because Delta means 3. It's such a Damien answer too. Like Delta means 3, and Force means And I like that John counters with, "Well, why not the Super Friends? Because we're all friends." That's such a. Again, all the voices are distinct.
Yeah, it's a fun, light-hearted little romp at the end. Because the main book's such a serious kind of. I mean, it's a serious book, but it's also got kind of a really specific pacing. This is very much a refresher to get to this, and it is just more of a cartoony comic at the end.
Yeah.
Where the kids are being kids, even though they're not really kids in this bit of the story. Maybe Lizzie's still in her teens, but yeah. But anyway, so there's a whole thing where she tries to jump a gap with the kangaroo. Doesn't quite work, but technically she still wins, and she's kind of cheeky about it. Actually, I laughed a lot here at one of the lines here. Damien gives John shit. He's like, "Hey, aren't you supposed to save her? You're Superman. Does she look saved?" And he's like, "Wait, I'm supposed to save her? Like, I can't do that all the time. You're Batman. What does Batman do?" And Damien's response is, "I am vengeance. I am the night. I avenge her nightly." I thought that was really funny. I thought that was a great line. But yes, so because they were talking about what the S symbol means and talking about hope and all the rest of it, Trinity decides to name their trio Gen S. And John likes it, Damien hates it. But yeah, so that's what they've got. And the joke at the end is that John's never going to shut up talking about what the S is and what it means and whatnot. He's like, technically the S comes from a river on Krypton that flows in that shape. That's why it's in the symbol.
Oh, this is going to be forever, isn't it? And weirdly, it looks like they're adding a memorial on Themyscira for their parents at the end there, which is a bit telling. I wonder what that's about. And that also that Lizzie was breaking rules by letting the boys come to paradise.
Oh, no, right? She said at the start she got express permission from Queen Mum, so I don't think Diana's dead. I think it's implying Diana's the Queen of Themyscira now, I think.
Gotcha. I'm saying I could have sworn that she said she was catching heat for that.
It's like one of the first things she says. Is she?
Oh, okay. So I read that wrong. So she says, I didn't get special permission from Queen Mom to have the boys sit and argue. So basically, let's get to going.
Yeah.
I read that as she didn't get it, so let's get to going before we get into trouble. So I thought she was taking heat, but also her kangaroo was Jumpa Jr., which I thought was pretty funny.
I always forget about Jumper the kangaroo until I'm reminded of it. So it wasn't until she said Jumper Jr. I went, oh yeah, that's why they're kangaroos, because that's an old Wonder Woman thing that gets brought up once in a blue moon.
Yeah. And just at this end here where she says, I'm an Amazon, I don't mind forever, and the song that's with you boys, there is a sense of family with them.
They call her sister repeatedly throughout this story.
Right. But just here, just the whole vibe of it, and just the idea that, like, yes, we know that their parents are really friends, and we've seen in other things Clark and Bruce refer to each other as brothers. Here, this is the first generation of heroes that I feel like they really are bonded family. It's a really weird thing because you don't get that with you get that with the Robins, right? But that's really the only set of sidekicks that really feel like that. With the Titans, they kind of have their own little dynamics going on, but here King's really, really done a good job at establishing that these three kids do feel like they are cousins that grew up with each other. And just the idea that, Damian, paved the way for John and now Lizzie, in the comics, by when Morrison brought him in Batman and Son. It is a nice that they have their own, sense of purpose amongst them. They're not this lost generation, kind of like the Young Justice kids kind of became.
Yeah. All right. Well, we already rated the book, so we'll have to do that again. I just forgot there was a backup, but
that's okay.
Yeah, the backup's decent fun. It's nothing compared to the main story, but it's
it is a nice palate cleanser almost, right? Because the main book kind of gets serious and a little bit heavy at times, and so it's nice that this in the back, King gets to kind of stretch his legs and tell a little bit of a lighter story, right? Because we also had what'd she call herself? Was it Wonder Robin in that first one?
Yeah.
And all of that stuff. So it's nice that he can shift gears a little and do something a little bit lighter.